I'm going to have to find it and mute it before we start. So let's just see what happens when my live stream finally goes through. If it goes through. I guess I can let them in. Oh, it says it's live. Okay. And it's not echoing. Wow. It's a good day. All right. Let you guys in. They're joining. Okay, let me mute everybody, except you're probably gonna have to unmute again. All right. All right, let's get started. Oh, wait, am I echoing? No, I'm not. Yay. Okay. All right. Let you guys in. I knew I would. Okay, give me a sec. I have to find my joining. Okay, let me mute everybody, except you're probably gonna have to unmute again. All right. All right, let's get started. Oh, wait, am I echoing? No. Sorry, you guys, I lied. Okay. I have to find my. Let you guys in. I knew I would. Okay, give me a sec. I have to find my joining window. Okay, let me mute everybody. Except hopefully I can probably going to unmute again. There it is. All right. We're good. All right. We are officially starting now. So thanks everyone for being with me. I have a very, very wonderful, exciting guest for you guys tonight. And I'm gonna, before I tell you more about him, I'm gonna tell you some really complimentary things which don't fall off your chairs or your couches, because you know I'm not very complimentary very often. So this gentleman is one of the only people in the entire world that I willingly allow in my field, and that I'll even sit still for an hour. So I don't know, do you even know how I discovered you? I have no idea how I came across you. Maybe you remember, I don't, but I've known him for quite a few years. And when I, kind of get told I need to go see him, I go see him. And I don't want to restrict him. We're all multifaceted beings, so I really don't want to restrict him by putting one label on him. And I think you'll see very quickly you really can't. But in my mind, although he's many things, as we all are, he excels at the identification and movement of energy, particularly in the energy bodies. But of course, the energy bodies go down into the avatar as well, all connected. And so he's just wonderful at really quickly identifying and freeing blocks. And you're like, okay, we've heard all this before. Okay, so hold that over there for a second. So what sold me on Doyen is I felt it. I didn't just feel warm, tingly process during a telesummit. I didn't just, the hair didn't just stand up on the back of the head. I have had sessions with him, you guys, and this is actually a good thing. It might sound like a bad thing, but it's a good thing, where he knows this too, where I have flopped like a fish, getting off a hook, and I woke up and I felt like I was run over by a semi truck or a dump truck. And I'm sorry, that's how I want to feel. I want to feel like when I do the energy exchange, and for me, and he knows this about me, and some of you guys do too, for me, it's not even the money. If I'm going to give you an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of my time, I better get something back. And this man delivers every time in spades. This is one of the most amazing human beings on this planet. And you guys know I don't pass out compliments. So he's got a lot to live up to, but he can do it because it's his being. He is in this being, and you guys will feel that very quickly every single minute of the day. If you want to know what ascension looks like, if you want to know what embodiment and expansion looks like, sit in this man's presence, because he's doing the work. And I'll shout out anyone who is authentic, who can do what they say they can do, who is who they say they are. Is he perfect? Heck to the no. But he's real, and he's doing the work. and he's modeling high frequency and he's sharing his gifts with others. So sorry with that long introduction, but I can't say enough good things. Yeah, I consider you a friend. If I needed something, I'd have no problem, saying, hey, can you lend an ear? And I think you'd be there for me. So again, I'd like to introduce you to Doyen Fraser, who is, one of my only healers. And why don't you tell us about you now that I've I don't know, giving you a big head? Probably not, but go ahead.
I try to be as remain in as much humility as possible, but I do appreciate it. And it's nice to feel recognized and seen and, have my work acknowledged. And thank you for having me here. What's up, chat? Super honor. But yeah, my name is Doyen Fraser. I've been in the field of mind body medicine, energy medicine since about 2012 now. I guess I'll kind of just give a little bit of my backstory just to kind of start things off. I did want to start off a little bit on some some relative human kind of levels, which was, man, I really had terrible sleep last night, and it was because of my dreams. And it's like, I don't know if y'all have dreams that just feel so real where you just do not rest. So that was me last night. And so I'm a little bit on the tired side, but that intro certainly kind of pumped me up a little bit. And again, I'm glad to be here with y'all. But so, God, my path is very obscure and peculiar. But I'd like to say that I was kind of born for this, prepared for this journey. It was not abnormal for me to wake up. I'm Jamaican, Filipino, German, English, Scottish, got some Spaniard in me, and kind of all over the world, right? But on my Jamaican side of my family, it was not abnormal for me to wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to my grandma speaking in tongues, casting entities out of the house. It was not abnormal to speak about, ghosts or paranormal phenomena as dinner table conversation. So I kind of feel like my upbringing really prepared me for, what I would experience later on that journey. But I was very fortunate enough to find a Reiki school that was 2 year, 200-hour master, teacher training course, which is kind of like unheard of in the energy world. And during this course, again, we had to have 200 hours of training, of practice, of table work outside of class in order to receive our certificate. And during that, I started to get people to move without touching them. And that's what really kind of set the whole, interest, desire, passion, you know what I mean? That was a major catalyst for kind of what I ended up, discovering later on. And so imagine this, you're working on a person and you're, laying your hands on certain areas and you're just going through the chakras. And, as you get to a specific chakra, all of a sudden that person's body starts to palpitate. It starts to have localized twitch responses in the area that you're intending to work with. And when it started to happen to me, I was like, teacher, like, yo, what is this? This is insane. And he was kind of just like, well, it's energy releasing. It's stagnant energy being released. And I was like, okay, yeah, but like, that's not good enough for me. I was like, I need to know more. And the reason why was because what would happen is I would work it on some people and be able to get them to have these releases with little to no effort. I could just look at them and they would start to happen. And then some people, no matter how hard I tried, I could not get them to budge. Now, I feel like it's important to denote that these releases are referred to clinically or formally, they are referred to as somatic releases. And a somatic release is just it's the physiological built-in mechanism in our bodies that releases excess tension, stress, and stagnant energy, frozen energy. It was coined by a doctor named Dr. Peter Levine, who was studying gazelles. He was studying some animal in Africa. Excuse me. And what he realized was that when an animal, after an animal had been attacked by like a cheetah or a lion or like some type of predator, it would just fall to the ground and just start just shaking and convulsing and twitching, and then it would get up. And he was able to figure out that this is, again, just the natural way that the body discharges stress, trauma. So figuring out I could get this to do this to people but not all people it would happen to. But over time, I recognized that this is something that should be happening while you're sending energy to people, at least through my method of leptokinesis, leptokinetic therapy. Um, a very like a pivotal thing that kind of suggested this to me was I had a client and we had done we had done 6, 7 sessions. We'd done a lot of sessions and there had been no movement, no type of involuntary reactions that had happened during the session. And on the 7th session, intuitively something just popped in my brain like, hey, work with this specific emotion, which was like deprivation. It was like this individual was adopted, so it was just a very specific emotion that they had been kind of storing as a core disharmonic resonance in their body. And when I isolated that specific emotion and targeted it and tried to, transmute it or release that energy, all of a sudden they erupted and all of this, very strong twitching and shaking, crying. It got to the point where I put videos on my YouTube channel where I will just send energy and record it and have that, be used as kind of like we're freezing this energy in time and now you can get this session forever. It's here. It's like technology. And they can sit there and watch my videos and have the same responses that they would have when I'm working on them in person. And this is like a very common phenomenon. This is something that I've had a few patients this month reach out to me about. They're like, is this normal? I'm like, kinda, yeah.
Okay, let me stop you for a minute because I want to make sure everybody
Sure.
heard. So you guys understand what he's saying. So he's saying that if you feel, of course, resonant and want a session, I highly recommend you have a session, of course. But if you don't feel led that way and you just want to check him out, he's saying that if you have the issues, that resonate or cross over with the work that he was doing on those videos, and even not, maybe it feels to me like even beyond that, you can also have, these energy releases, by watching his videos, and that's not personalized. It's general. It's personalized in a way, but, not like the personalization, of course, you would get if you had a one-on-one session. So pretty cool gift that he just offered y'all. I wanted to make sure you heard that. It's funny you say that because I didn't know that was an observable thing that you got some feedback on, because I've watched some of your meditations and had releases. So I'm like, I think he's just like has me like trained on the wavelength or something. But so that's a legitimate thing that's super cool,
Thank you. Yeah, it's certainly something that I have now it's been reported to me on enough occasions to where it seems to be some type of phenomena. So with all that kind of being said, I recognize that this is something that should be happening. We did this session with this individual again, and we did multiple sessions. And when we found this one little tiny specific thing, we were able to induce those behaviors in them. We were able to reactivate their system, re-engage with this just natural mechanism that is responsible for discharging stress and tension. So I would then begin to just start studying a lot of different energy healing modalities, a lot of just different like subtle anatomies, again, following more of the subtle teachings, subtle energetic teachings. And while working with some of these more obscure energy anatomies like Jehovian seals and different types of implants and different higher chakras that are outside of the, primary 7, starting to work with things like that, it did increase the consistency of inducing somatic releases in my clients, but it still wasn't consistent enough for me. So one day I just asked a simple question, which was, well, what makes the body move involuntarily? And the answer is very simple. It's the nervous system. And so I started to then study neurology, biochemistry, physiology. I started studying all of these very physical sciences and basically reverse engineered the bioelectrical system. I learned how we do something called transduction. You know about this, Dr. K. Transduction, think of this. You take your hand and you put it on something hot, and that heat then sends that heat gets transformed into an electrical piece of information, travels up your arm and goes into your brain and tells you that's hot. And so what I basically did was I figured out how that transduction through tactile stimulus is happening to the body. And as a result of that, I was able to develop a step-by-step repeatable process that can induce these somatic releases in over 80% of the people that I work in. I took a survey last year. My sample size was N equals like 54. And out of those 54 people, it was like 86, 88% or something like that, that experience involuntary movement. I have my survey for this year is about like 27 people or so right now, and over 90% of them have had some type of involuntary release that manifests. And this is something that I've been able to teach to students as well, and they've been able to also replicate
Cool.
these releases in their clients that they work with.
I have a question from an
Sure.
audience member, Stacy. She says, is there natural or automatic energy then that fills in the space where the energy is released? Or is it more transmuted into neutral or positive energy? And then she said, is this a process you can do on yourself?
It's a good question. It's a really, really good question. I would just look at it more like this. I certainly wouldn't see it as a negative energy that's filling a space. If we most simply define an energy blockage, this is in all of the Eastern teachings, the most simplest way we can define an energy blockage is tension. That's why things like yoga are so important. That's why stretching is so important. I am simply reducing the tension. That's one of the things. I'm reducing the tension in people's bodies. And as a result of that, that is, I don't want to say open, like it's opening so that the circulation of energy is able to flow more properly. Think of it like this. You have a circuitry in your body, and things like tension or fascial adhesions, toxins, things like that, they act as inhibitors, or they think if you put like a chip that would stop the flow of electrical activity, I am increasing the flow of electrical currents throughout the body, electrical and electromagnetic currents. So it's a positive energy, you know what I mean? And yes, this is a process that I can do on myself. I do it on myself all the time. I'd say it's easier to do it on other people. My teacher used to always say, working on yourself and working on those closest to you are often the hardest types of work to do, because there's just a different level of attachment to the outcome that you have working with a stranger. Yeah, that's how I would try to.
I want to insert this really quick before it
Sure.
goes by, but Blue Velvet says, I'm seeing this man is such in his healthy masculine, love his energy. So kudos for that too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you rock it. Yeah, it's real beautiful. I had a question. So, and don't be modest when you answer this. I'm trying to think how to phrase it. Okay. I don't know if you know, but I'm a little intuitive. I'm a little psychic. I can see to the bone of people. I'm not young. I've been around. I've had a million healings. I've gone to a million psychics. I've gone to a million mediums. What is it about you? Do you think it's just your unique combination of gifts and how you've put it together that give you, you know what I mean? You didn't just study it. You know, we can study, we can go to a psychic class, we can go to a remote viewing class, but it doesn't mean we're an awesome remote viewer. Like, what is it about you, in your opinion? Because I truly consider you extraordinary. Like, to me, you're like, you should be on like, I don't know, what's that, like, you know, those weird shows where they have weird people on? Like, you should, because you're like, you know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be cool? Like, you guys have got to watch his videos. I probably should have prepped you guys to watch his videos first, because you have to see that. Okay, first of all, you can barely, you're like, this has to be fake, in my opinion. The first time I watched it before he worked on me, I'm like, this is fake. I mean, I think I actually came to you almost to test you more than for any. I'm just like,
That's why I'm not on
and
these
like,
shows. That's why I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm serious. Like, this is exactly why. Go ahead, though. This is great.
yeah. So when I came to him, like the first time, I don't know if you guys have, like, it almost makes me cry right now because I don't know if you guys have ever felt your heart energy release, but like I have a lot of heart issues, and he knows this, but to feel these releases, it is the most beautiful thing. Sometimes I cry, like sometimes I weep, like I can't even help it. Sometimes I have higher abilities activated. Sometimes I have memory come in. I have had like the most amazing future life visions and past life visions during these sessions. And I go in with no expectation because it's like when you guys come to one of my live events, that's what I consider when I go into a healing with you. I feel like it's a ride. You get on the ride, you strap in, you hang on. And you know what? It might be, I've had really calm sessions where I had mini releases
Hmm.
because what he's not telling you is he watches the micro releases. You might not even know you're releasing, but he's like so tuned. Like if your cheek twitches, you're releasing. Or if you reach up and rub your eye, you might think that's nothing, but that's something. And what I love about him, and I don't think he'll tell you this, but he might have it on the videos. I haven't watched one lately. I love he debriefs you at the end. So he'll be like, and that's even cooler. Then your mind is like, like those emojis, you guys, where your mind's blown. Like my mind's always blown. I'm like, he's like, well, there's something in your throat. And I'm like, yeah, I was like clearing my throat. And he's like, and then about halfway through, like you had some major heart releases, and then there were some things you done, and then I like took out some like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's like the narrative of what I felt and observed. Like he's the real deal. And it's just is it's really an experience. Like I know it sounds like I'm like his pitch woman, and I'm not. I mean, this is really heartfelt and really sincere. One of the things in the scans I come up against, and this won't surprise you, is I want to say turn off your effing nervous system to every single person, including myself. Like, and
Hmm.
this is a piece of, in my opinion, and I know you briefly touched on that, but we can't, we're like, how do we remember our past lives? How do we expand our being? How do we raise our frequency? Turn off the effing nervous system, then we'll talk about it. Then we can go to those classes. Then we can, you know what I mean? We can relax into our being. And so this is just a beautiful man who has phenomenal gifts, phenomenal natural abilities, and who's in tune with them, who's mastered them and is still mastering them, still learning. Another thing I love about Doyen is he's like me. He has a hunger for learning. He'll tweak, he'll change, he'll discard, he'll add. That's a beautiful thing. Do you know how humbling that is? Do you know what that takes to be like, okay, you know what? I don't really like how I was working 6 months ago. I'm going to kind of tweak it this way and that way. And I'm seeing an improvement like that, instead of being, I just love it so much. To me, that's such a conscious being, the ability to flow and change and downgrade and upgrade. And so, I've had sessions that, I didn't flop like a fish, but I had amazing, results. And you will be thirsty and you will be tired and you will know something happens. I like how you're laughing. But anyway, go ahead. So what in your opinion though makes you extraordinary? Like I have never met it that's as good at this as you ever.
I think there's and thank you. It really means a lot from you. It sincerely does. Because there are a lot of people. Again, like I try to be as humble as possible, but there are a lot of people out there that try to act like they do a lot of these things, and I'm sure that you've seen it as well. And it's like any field. You know what I mean? Any field deals with that, especially one that's not regulated like ours.
Right.
Uh, um, but I would probably say like I wholeheartedly feel there's a genetic element involved in all of this.
Ah, I love that.
Jamaican people, island people in particular. So I'm two Jamaican and Filipino is what I am the most. Jamaican people are very
Mm,
spiritually in tune and have a lot of power. I'm pretty sure I got some of my powers from my grandma. I have seen her do crazy stuff energetically.
mm.
And it's crazy because she's old fashioned. She's a Christian. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't prescribe to some.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and there's a power in it, and they're all the same path or the same. They're all different roads that lead to the same high mountaintop. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
just the
agreed.
power of the wielder, in my opinion. Um, so I think that there's certainly like again like a genetic element. Filipinos are well known for healing. We're well known for shamanistic abilities. We have one of the second
Mm.
highest schizophrenic rate like in the world.
There you go. That explained it. Okay, never mind. Next question. No, I'm kidding. You just
Hey, look. This has been seriously, there's been something like, because I am primarily my primary extrasensory perception is clairaudience. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
feel like we need to dispel kind of the
That's
stigma behind
interesting.
like hearing a voice in your head a little bit. Like something be talking to me in my head, and I will just be like, whoa, how do I understand this complex quantum theoretical like function? You know what I mean? Like how like so there is
Yeah.
like a power in learning to discern between your inner voice and perhaps external voices. But to reel it back in, I would certainly say there's a genetic predisposition that I have, along with I, I think that that's part of like I think it's like a purpose. Like I incarnated here specifically to with all of these lifetimes of mastering different types of energy healing. When I look through my films, so I have over 500 documented cases on my YouTube channel. I've been documenting this phenomena since
Wow.
yeah, since 2014. I am, in fact, the first person to ever document inducing somatic releases remotely. I am the first person in the world to document that on camera.
That's cool.
When I go back and I look through all like my different eras of healing, like different techniques I was primarily
Yeah.
using, I feel a sense of like, oh, this is something I mastered in this lifetime. This is a different technique I mastered in this lifetime. This is a
Oh,
different
wow.
until I got to the point where I no longer needed to move. I no longer needed to engage physically. I only need to visualize and intend, which they say is one of the highest tiers of magic, is sheer mental focus, concentration. Um, and so I think that again, like there's a higher purpose. Like I came here as an older soul with a lot of information already imbued into me, and a big purpose of me coming here was getting that information out of my body, out of my soul, and onto paper, so that other people can have
Mm.
access. So the information can be accessible. Is why I think again, I just think there's a destiny layer involved here. And again,
I want to freeze on that a minute. But hold on. I love that too because your books are reasonable if I remember. Maybe not. Maybe you jacked them up. But I forgot.
no,
He's
they
written a
are.
bunch of
No,
books.
they're
Uh,
reasonable.
okay. He's written a bunch of books, which I think I immediately like got almost everything. I don't know if you've written anything lately, but just a really again, I love this and I want to point it out. So there's not just I would say it's beyond humble. There's this understanding of the mechanics of all time, all space, the mechanics of this reality, which I love, which is that there isn't this protection necessarily of income or money with you, which I love. Like sometimes I think, Diane, you need to be a little more obsessed with money, but because you're not, like your heart really beats like you're just such a learner and you're such you travel the astral so much and you interact with so many beings and you're such a healer like you're really a good illustration too of that ability to not only have the other connect to the other aspects of yourself here they are everywhere but also I believe you often bi tri quad whatever you call it locate in this now moment and I think again um just a real illustration of a lot of to me the frequencies when I look at your field of the Buddha and the mystics and the Christ consciousness and the monks and all mixed together. You have your bumps in the road, like he's very human, we've shared some personal details of our life. And he messes up too. He reads energy wrong sometimes. He gets caught in the traps of this reality like we all do. So again, a very real man, walking this path. But I love, and there's some reasons I'm saying this, I love the accessibility that you, even though I can put you in those categories because I can read your frequency. You're not coming out saying, I am the Buddha, on a pedestal. You know what I'm saying? You have to pay me at 777 and your bank account will be fixed. You're not super hung up and I could be wrong, I could be making this up, or it could be another timeline. At some point, I almost felt like you had like, and maybe I made this up, like I said, almost like a pay as you go. Like you had some wobble even in your fee structure at one point, or am I imagining that?
No,
Like,
there was
didn't
a
you?
point, my original business model when I first started was I will never turn anyone away due to finances. Then I got businessman, and like I ended up, I found a little bit more structure and things like that. But let me
Yeah,
tell you,
yeah.
I felt far more successful financially, freely giving, than
Mm,
having the constraint of putting limitations on the prices. And so where
right.
I'm at right now is through that experience. This is what I feel like the culmination, the amalgamation of life is that you go through stuff and then you try to
I
be like,
agree.
okay, discard what
Yep.
resonates, keep what does not. So I
Yep.
learned a little
Love
bit
it.
to discern, okay, like I don't want
Mhm.
to say this person is worthy or like deserves it, but I feel like this is a person I can help because they're willing to help themselves. You can pay me all the
Ah,
money
I
you
love
want, you can pay me all the money you want, but if you're not willing to make changes or do stuff, I mean, how much can I really help you? I mean, I might whisk something away momentarily, but you're probably going to just redevelop it because you're not changing your behaviors.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. But I just love that again. I love anyone whose focus is the work. And yeah, I don't care if you become a billionaire. Again, it's that authenticity and the focus on, contribution, your contribution that, again, I love about you. So, um, and I'm trying to point out that my real wish is that we would all be more in this paradigm of just let's start with authentic. Like, why pretend? Like, you guys are so amazing the way you are and the gifts that you have. We don't need to try to be anybody else or promote ourselves as more than we are. You guys are more than enough. I am enough. You are enough now. There is nothing that needs fixed, nothing that needs cleared, nothing. I mean, you're enough right now, you guys. And so we don't need to, as practitioners, you know, I mean, this feels effed up, Doyen. It breaks my heart, every day. Did he get kicked? Did you get kicked off? I'm like in my rant. He's like, enough of her. Did you get kicked off? Or did he go? Where'd he go? Okay, so they kicked him off. Well, maybe that's my punishment. But yeah, so yeah, my heart breaks. You guys know how I feel about the field of consciousness and all the movements and all the, darkness. And so yeah, really great. Yeah, hopefully he'll find his way back. Really great. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me? I can entertain you in the meantime. I don't know. I can talk. Aliens, yes. What is I'll ask that when if he comes back. Hopefully they didn't take him permanently. I know, I'm so crazy. That's what you mean, right? I'm so crazy. Sure. Oh, there he is. Okay. We'll have to ask him about that. And I will ask that question, Mindy.
Sorry, I'm
Okay.
not too sure what happened there. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, like yeah, I said, did they kick him off? That's what I said. I'm surprised they didn't kick me off. I was the one on a rant, but anyway, yeah. So, okay, so question for you from Mindy. Have you ever seen aliens? Or what do you think about ET aliens?
I'm sorry, we're having a lot of technical difficulties, but got plugged into my other headphones here. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Have you ever seen aliens? What do you think about the whole ET subject, the alien subject?
Man, that is quite a question. I think that there are interdimensional beings. I think that aliens is kind of a wrong word that we use, you know what I mean? I think because I
I
don't
agree.
think that it's a extraterrestrial. I think that again, it's like an interdimensional, it's an in-between space of existence. And I've had some unbelievable encounters, quite honestly. Um, One of my most viral videos got like over like close to like 500,000 views back in like 2016. It was quite some time ago. Um, this is quite a story. Let me make sure my mic is ready for this. Hold on, because
Before they
this
they
might
might
make
kick
it
you
cut
off
out.
again.
Yeah, I'm serious. Hold on, let me try to join back on these. Hold on.
All right, check one, two, check one, two. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, that's loud. That's clear. That's good. Yeah.
You said that's loud.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you were kind of muffled before. Now it's like clear and crisp.
Now it is.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure. Because this is a story, and this one I don't often share anymore. um, so I received a an inquiry from an individual. This person was so I had one of the first people I ever captured movement on camera. They were so moved by the session that they were inspired to go take classes from my teacher, and so they became, a family student. You know what I mean? We have the same seafood, we have the same master. You know what I mean? So there's a level of like lineage family going on there. Anyways, a friend of theirs reaches out to them saying, "Hey, I was reading from the Bible and I opened a portal and I'm now being like, I'm being possessed by a reptilian." And that sounds crazy, right? It gets crazier. And because my teacher was busy doing something that day, I was next in the chain of command or whatever. So they were like, hit up Diane. And then so they reached out to me and I got their information, contacted them, spoke to them. I was in Maryland. They were in Virginia. They drove out of state to come into,
Wow.
yeah, they drove out of state. And when they got to my office, we were talking a little bit. We were like, my office was like I had a patio and we were out on the patio in the back and just talking. And all of a sudden, her body just started moving and just like doing stuff. And she was like, "I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this." And I was like, "Let's go." Threw her on the table. And I ended up doing a 4 hour, 4.5 hour session on her, which is absurd. Yes, a long time.
Wow.
And what ended up happening was like maybe like the first hour, first 2 hours of the session, she was relaying what something was saying to her. So she was like still using like kind of like her voice, like her rhythm of speech, and just being like, this thing is saying this, and she's just repeating what it's saying. And then eventually, like into the 3 hour mark, 2.5 hour mark, it started speaking through her and telling me things like, I don't know anything about the quantum manipulation of universes, little boy, and I'm not as strong as I think I am. And tell
Oh,
and trying to like yeah, trying to like psychically manipulate me, like tell me things that I'm insecure about. Tell me when I started filming, it was saying it was opening portals in my house, and I was like, I was talking ish to it. You know what I mean? Like I was talking to it, being like, whatever, man.
wow.
Like I'll close your portals. I don't care. You know what I mean? And then it goes
Close. You open them all close. I love
right.
it.
Then it goes once a connection has been established, there will always be a connection. If it is not through me, it will be through others. This is important to put in the back of your mind for later. And so, and again, I recorded this. Her higher self ended up coming through, and this was making people cry. Like what the message that came through the higher self, talking about
Mm.
how it's helping people like her with that are suffering from mind pollution because that's all it is, and the true love and all these things are like the way, and that we haven't found a way to tell people that's not scary, but we want people to know how real it is. This is almost like word for word what this woman's
Wow.
higher saying, and she's directly assisting me in the like, or I'm assisting them. They're like I am the assistant. You know what I mean? And they're kind of guiding me on where to go and where to be, and walking me through the process to help them. And
Wow.
again, like about 4.5 hours in, we finally got it out. But then the next day,
Oh no. Oh no. After that long? Wow.
listen, the next day, I took my eldest son to the park. And like in my neighborhood, there was like parks. There's like these trails, but they're like not cemented. They're like tar, you know what I mean? They're like paved trails that will like go through the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And we go to a park that I'm not familiar with. I'm letting him play there, whatever, whatever. It's time to go. He doesn't want to go. He's throwing a fit. I'm like, bro, it's time to go. So I like kind of like leave in a rush and I go again, like I've never been to this part of the neighborhood, and I get to the end of a path, and I'm like, oh, I can't get back this way, so I'm about to turn around, and there's these two women there, and they're both like Muslim women, and one of them, the daughter, like looks at me and goes, "I've been waiting for you my whole life. We're twins. We're twins. I have cancer." And like oh, they just started saying really weird stuff. If you light a candle, if this is real. She was like, "If you light a candle here, I will appear." Saying some weird stuff like that. And then
Wow.
she asked me for a cigarette. And she's like, I'm like, "Don't you have cancer?" But people with cancer still smoke. You know what I
Yep,
mean? At this point in
true.
time, I was a lot younger. I was smoking cigarettes, and I was like, I don't have a mommy there at my house, and it was almost as if it was like I was now being led to my. It was weird. It was like I was literally just being led to my house by this person, and the closer I'm getting to my
Wow.
house, weirder and weirder stuff they start to say, like. I'm a princess of Saudi Arabia, and I've been assaulted, and I have connections with the news, and I burned my fingerprints off, and like just like saying really weird stuff. And so we get to my house. I give her a cigarette. We're smoking, we're by my office and we're on the back patio. And all of a sudden it begins to torrentially downpour. Me being a gentleman, I'm like, well, just come into my office. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it rains. It pours down rain for almost 3 hours. And it just progressively continues to get weirder and weirder where she starts talking a lot about war being a general and like a lot of violent stuff. And what I didn't mention was that the reptilian was saying that it's a high-ranking draconian reptilian, like
Oh,
that like sees over fleets and galactic warfare, and that war is love, and like all kinds of saying all kinds of stuff like this. There was a war element that they were stressing on. And as I've
hmm.
gotten older, I can understand what they meant by that. War can show true love. You're willing to put your line on the line for those that you care about or a principle that you believe in. It is a very powerful form of love, as dichotic as it is. You know what I mean? As opposite as it is. Um. So, anyways, they tried to give me like all these gold rings. They would ask me if they take a shower in my house and change into my. They asked me if they could wear my clothes, then tried to like get on some weird, yeah, like tried to maybe extract my energy like that.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
the lady was like, "Can I lay on your table naked?" And I looked at her and I was like, "No," because I was like, "Do you want to do a session or not?" And then she said, "Well, can I get on there naked?" I was like, "No," and she was like, "Well, nah, I'm okay." She was like, I need my pain and my anger or something." She's like, that's what fuels me or something like that. And so the brain finally lets up, and mind you, a whole bunch of other weird stuff happened too. This is like a highlight. Rain finally stops, and I'm like motioning, like, "Get out of my house!" Like I'm like motioning, "Get out!" And she stands in the opening of my doorway, tilts her head to the side, and asks me like if I have a knife. And I just look at her, and I'm like, "Don't do that." I just looked at her. I said, "Don't do that."
Wow.
And then she was like, "Oh, I was just gonna cut my hair, blah 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 blah." And I was just like, "Why did you cut your hair with a knife?" And so I finally get her out of my house, and then she's like singing my address in like a melodic, creepy tune, saying that she's gonna. And again, I finally get her out. So that's that whole event. Then,
Oh
then
no. Is there more? Oh my gosh. It's
a little bit more.
crazy.
So this happened at the mother of my firstborn's house. Okay, and her mom used to live with us, and we were all out of town, everybody except for her mom. And her mom said that she heard a door slam downstairs, and she was like, "What was that?" And she's my firstborn's family's African, so they're first generation here. You know what I mean? Like they have a very strong, again, spiritual.
Sure, sure.
Yes. And so she said, "Whatever you are, you're not welcome here," kind of thing, whatever, whatever. She
Oh,
said she heard the
yeah.
door slam again, and something started running towards her. And so she ran out of the house, called like a priestess that came and like blessed the house, and the priestess said that there's all these portals. Like, what are the odds that she would say that? There's all these portals open around the house, and there's a bunch of beings trying to access, you know what I'm saying, the space. And yeah, that was kind of the end of that story.
You know,
uh,
I have to tell an aside. I was saying it in the chat, but I have found consistently, and I worked with the paranormal for 35 years. I started in the paranormal, that Bibles are portals 100% of the time. I mean, you might as well, you guys don't need to go buy a Ouija board. Like, just go dig up your Bible. I mean, seriously, it doesn't matter the version, doesn't matter if it's new, doesn't matter if it's great grandma's, doesn't matter if it's Gideon. Like, you just put the Bible on the table and hand on, and you go. It opens stuff, you know. And I don't want to go down that road, but actually, that's actually a great conversation for another time or teaching. But yeah, so needless to say, I just told everybody there are no Bibles in my house. The girls are like, what about the Bibles, Nana and Papa? I'm like, gone, burn, gone. Some people burn porn. I burn Bibles. Okay, we'll just throw that out there.
my goodness.
Anyway, so that's interesting because that's what I've seen so much come out of, like, where the Bible's stored, like in a closet, in a drawer, you know, by the nightstand. So yeah, anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But that is like, yeah, that's so interesting.
It was
Wow,
it was
that's
it was
crazy.
honestly scary, you know what I mean? Because I, like you, I started off a lot in uh exorcism, a lot in, you know what I mean, like a
Oh yeah,
negative.
you did too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, we have that in common.
After I graduated, about a year and a half after I graduated from classes, that's what I really was doing a lot of. And you know, I was able to identify the same patterns that a psychologist who was chosen to observe exorcisms by the Catholic Church. I was able to come up with the same three categories that indicate that it's an authentic entity attraction. Because, in my opinion, although they are very real, I think that it's an overprescribed uh, issue for people. I think most of the time it's their own inner stuff. Most of the time it's their own inner darkness.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
I was going to bring that up because okay, this is going to sound cheesy. Sorry. I really don't like to say things like since the eclipse, but I'm going to say it anyway. Since the eclipse, and actually the last year, 6 months to a year, I wasn't seeing hardcore possession where we're identifying a frequency outside of the soul collective inside the body or in. Why am I acting like you're 3 and you don't know exactly what I'm talking about? Because that's how most people in this field that are like professionals, and they should get you actually do usually have to do this. So sorry, I'm not trying to insult you, but you know how you can be like jumped in your energy field but not in your body, or jumped in your body but you know. So I've been seeing both, like, and even myself, which maybe we'll have the joy of working on me soon. You'll see for yourself. But even myself, I've been getting jumped so much easier and crazier. And I don't know if that eclipse, there's so many beings in my house right now. It's so funny. I don't know if that eclipse like opened up portals, or they deliberately were opening up portals with that. I don't know what, because I'm not even teaching any kind of protection anymore. I'm just like, I'm teaching clearing. I'm like, you guys need to be checking in, clearing yourselves, keeping your spaces clear. Like, I'm not seeing a protection. And I don't know, we could go down that road too. We could get on a million roads, but I don't know if protection worked, you know, if it was intent. I'm not quite sure. There's so much interference right now in this call. They're like, somebody's either liking this or not liking it. I'm hearing like EVPs. They're turning on and off my phone volume, like crazy crap's happening. They already kicked you off. So yeah, this is a ride. But what do you think about that? Because I just heard that theory yesterday, the all possession, which I don't think it's all or nothing. I don't think there's much in this reality or any reality that's all or nothing, black or white. But I just heard that it's you. But what I'm seeing is the frequency, and I'm telling you, it's not me. It's not my, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
It's
not me. It's outside of,
inorganic, what you're referring to.
yes,
Inor-
yes.
um, okay, so for the whole eclipse stuff, this is something that was supposedly like prophesied for, many, many, many years, and they call it the black hole sun. Supposedly it wasn't even the moon that was eclipsing with the sun. It's supposed to be like another, I don't know enough about it. I just know that they used this black hole sun or whatever they refer it to
Yes,
for
yes, yes,
a
yes.
lot of satanic rituals. They use it for
I
a
agree.
lot of literally of opening portals. One of the things they were saying is that they were bringing fleets of beings, like an
I think that's true.
insane amount of beings. They used that celestial event to achieve.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I don't know enough about it. Like on a soul level, like I'm like it makes sense, but to be able to articulate makes sense.
I gotcha.
I just know historically that's something like if you what is it, Audio Slave? I forget the band where they have a song Black Hole Sun. Go
They
listen to
do. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. True. And then the moon, to me is inorganic and it's a frequency, they just set whatever frequency they want and, beam the, what out of us with it whenever. You know what I don't understand? Explain this to me. I'm acting like Doyen's like the God that I don't really recognize, but Toyin, riddle me this. Just kidding. This is such a whack show. I love it. Why is the moon always above my house? Like when when I wake up in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, it's always like above my house. I'm like, I don't think the moon's supposed to like move it there above my house. And they're like, it's freaky. I'm telling you, I swear to God, I could take a picture and prove it to you guys. Always when I get up in the middle of the night, the moon is directly above my house. Like, doesn't matter if it's no moon, half moon, full moon, quarter moon, eighth of moon, whatever. It's weird because I believe it's like the Death Star spaceship and that it's totally inorganic, versus the, goddess Wicca worship organic moon, which of course that's probably been created by that belief. There's probably an element of that there too. But do you have any insight into that? Like, why would the moon always be?
the first thing I think of is like I just think about like how the moon can amplify emotions. I think about how the moon can do things to the subconscious. I think about how the moon influences our water. You know what I mean? The moon can it can
Mm.
enhance or it can increase extrasensory perception. So I'm over here like despite it perhaps, maybe being artificial, but still having like this weird
Oh,
psychic effect.
true. Agree. Agree.
Could be because you have a strong electromagnetic field. I don't know. Maybe you pulling it close
Maybe
towards
I
you.
just move it in and say, beam me up, Scotty. Take me away, please, please, please. Well, good. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm close. Maybe they will pick me up, Maybe they will come rescue me. LOL, LOL, from
Yeah,
this
the alien
game.
stuff. It's such a obscure thing, and it can be hard to talk about because it's hard to substantiate a lot of things and prove a lot of things.
Agree.
But
Agree.
but
Agree.
because like what happened to me was when I started going to college, I kind of started to step a little bit away from some of the mysticism, just because perhaps I was
Sure.
indoctrinated a little bit to just be like, I need data, like I need numbers, like we need to conduct an
Mhm.
experiment. Actually, like no, like otherwise we
Mhm.
don't know. It's conjecture, and we just spinning our tires right now. And I'm here to make changes. I'm here to bring some solutions. All right, but
It's nice.
what happened was I dealt with like after I got out of school, I started dealing with some more mystical kind of things. Like I had an entity attachment to a person very close to me. That was terrifying. It was the most terrifying experience I've ever had. Because you have to understand, when I've done entity like removals in the past, extractions in the past, I felt, I don't want to say godly. I felt very divine. I felt very powerful because as I'm working on it, the person can't, the entity can't, like, they can't get up. They can't try to attack me. Like they're like almost like immobilized, paralyzed by the energy that I'm sending to them. So it's a very powerful feeling where I'm like, y'all know who
Sure.
I am inside. You don't play with me. You know what I mean? But dealing with it with someone that was, you know, like a family member was very terrifying. For one, because it's in my house. You don't get to just work on a
Sure.
person. Hey, but what was really terrifying, what started happening
Mhm.
was I was working on them. I just started working on them last year because I moved back, like maybe 2 years ago. And over the period of a couple months, they started having strong somatic releases. They started to be able to like just even think about me and start having somatic releases. And then it just got to the
Wow.
point where it was happening. It was just happening to them. Like it was just spontaneously happening to them. And this one day we had some friends over and it started kind of getting like really intense. And we went upstairs and I was like, hey, what's wrong? And she was like, I don't know. And she just started crying and crying and crying. I was like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know. And and then she asked me to work on her. I started working on it and then she started to she let out a scream that was not human. You know what I mean? It was a
Wow.
noise that was human. And there's people like there was witnesses and stuff like that. They were terrified hearing this. And so, but the thing that was the scariest for me was even after the session, a couple hour session I did on them, they would not stop convulsing. They would not stop. And I was scared. I was like, oh my God, like, is
What?
this,
That's scary. Yeah, scary.
I was like, is this something neurological now? Like, is this like an actual physical, like, illness or something going on? They fell asleep. They finally fell asleep 7, 8 in the morning. And they're doing it in their sleep. They're having the movements in their sleep. And I was like, oh, like, there's no making this up, you know? So then it just took about another 36 hours of work, like all throughout the day to get it to go away. So I've had some crazy paranormal experiences since I've gotten out of school that kind of made me like reflect. I'll tell you one last story about this topic, and then if you want to change it, we can.
Okay.
Again, because I work with so many people, I've worked with so many people that claim that they're entities, and then work on them and kind of be like, this is probably your own stuff. Like you're not displaying the telltale signs, which are you're trying to hurt yourself during the session, you're trying to choke yourself, pull your hair out, scratch at yourself, you're speaking in different languages, whether that's
Right.
Latin, a language that's not from this planet. And then the third thing is you are trying to psychically attack me through reading my mind, my insecurities, and trying to get
Mhm.
me to lose my concentration and my focus on what we're doing. Um, or try to scare me. Those are like the main three things. So I was doing this one session on an individual, and you know they were claiming they had a reptilian, and this was definitely during like my very rigid time in school where I was like, you're probably full of it. I really doubt you have one. And
Ah,
so it's about like 40 minutes into the session, and not like there's been like somatic releases and stuff like that, but still nothing indicative of an attachment. And you know how I mute my mic when I do sessions, so people can't hear anything I'm doing. You know what I mean? So it's a
oh
very
yeah. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
so I just reduce as much bias as I can.
Right.
I think in my mind, I'm like, okay, if you're a reptilian, why haven't you hissed at me? And I swear to you, 2 seconds after that thought, this woman hissed at me and then started speaking in a different language and doing these weird movements and then looked up at me and goes, should I be letting it do this? And I have this on film.
That's crazy. Wow.
It was like, it was such a dirty feeling. Like it was such a grimy, intrusive, just nasty feeling, you know, to like for something to be like going through your thoughts. But it was so real. I was like, oh my God. I might need to reevaluate a little bit here. You
Well,
know.
you've done entity release on me. I don't know if you remember because you've probably had like 200 people since and you were like a little hesitant. You're like, we're gonna go ahead and do this. But I don't think I was displaying any of the, major symptoms of possession. Or maybe I
You
was, and I don't
no,
remember.
you weren't. And so that's one of the so I feel like there's a hierarchy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There were like
Yeah.
lesser, there were like shadow entities that I feel like are some of the most common ones,
Okay.
and I feel like
Okay.
those can present themselves as still like what looks like a normal release. It could be like a little finger twist.
Ah,
That's
oh,
something
okay.
that
Oh, wow. Okay.
too.
Okay.
That's something I wanted to talk about. I was glad that you brought that up earlier. Because how I've mainly kind of mentioned some of the more extreme behaviors that manifest with
Right.
somatic releases, like the
Right.
twitching and the shaking and the crying, but they can be extremely subtle. It could be your eyes fluttering. It could be you yawning or swallowing or, moving consciously even like or like when
Mhm.
you're stretching, like there's all these very very small things that can speak extraordinarily loud, you know.
By the way, I just have to mention this for fun. I just started having energy releases, so thank you for that.
I love that
We're
for
gonna
you.
talk another 3 hours, just letting you know. It's gonna be like 3 free sessions for me. Now this is all about me. Forget y'all because now I'm having energy releases, so we're gonna keep him talking. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna keep you super long. Here's a good question. We'll switch off. I hate to say it. I always say I came out of the paranormal, like fully working in it because it's so dark, but I still have a real fondness for it. I just have to say that. It's still just very fond of talking about that. And it's highly entertaining to me for some reason, probably a lot of past life stuff too. But okay, here's a good question. Can addictions be related to energy?
Of course. I mean, a lot of times though, like, so like again, like my whole focus in doing a lot of this stuff has been in the physical, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And that could be like, when I say that, I'm thinking like the brain can become rewired in a way that becomes dependent. You know what I mean? It's not always something necessarily like esoteric or subtle. There are just normal physical things that can cause these things. I was a child, you know what I mean? And I was a child, it's because I was trying to cope with trauma and pain that I could not comprehend at that age.
mhm,
So that was
mhm.
the way that I was trying to cope or self-medicate. Um, but like you can certainly help treat addictions through energy work. Smoking cessation and other forms of dependency are certainly things that can be treated through energy work, even acupuncture, things like that. But a lot of times, we are multifaceted, we are multidimensional, and we have to try to treat ourselves in a wholeness from physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. But so yeah, it certainly can be related to energy. Um, but again, I try to
I
focus
haven't,
on the behavior.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm done.
Go ahead. Oh, I haven't looked at your website in a minute, so forgive me. I should have looked at it before I came on, but I do what I want. So do you still do like you used to offer kind of like different bents? And maybe you don't do this anymore. Maybe you just like go where you feel like you should go. Like you used to have like we could focus on like activating certain centers. You know what I'm talking about? Like metaphysics or clearing implants, or you used to, I don't know. I mean, you'll have to tell me. I don't know what you're doing now with like how you structure your appointments or physical, like a physical tune-up type of thing. So what are you doing now? Like what are you offering in like, are you offering categories or are you more like intuitively just going where things need to go?
So my like business model right now is kind of all over the place. I have unfortunately been just rebuilding a lot of stuff in terms of just like the infrastructure of my business. My old website from 2014, I was just looking at like archives.org or whatever the website it is, and I have like 500 pages on my website. I was like disgusted, and I lost it in the dumbest way. But anyways, I am right now. I have a couple of different services. I have psychic protection services. I have a service for specifically somatic releasing. Like I have services for seal removal, implant removal, negative energy removal,
Oh,
that
you
kind
do.
of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not on my website. It's on like my cat. Like it's on my like where you can schedule appointments with me. That's separate from my website.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Okay.
on my website, I try to keep it a little bit more simple, so I don't confuse as many people. Um, but even if people all the time come to me and they want to work on something, and I'm like, we'll definitely take a look at that. We'll definitely try to work with that. But you've heard me say this. You may have something you want to work with. I may have something I want to work with, and then your body may have something completely different in mind that it wants to work with, that it's ready to work with. You know, like you were saying, you get what you need kind of thing. And so I've just learned to try to listen to
Yeah,
their body's intelligence along with my
yeah. Here's some good questions. What about phobias that come out of nowhere?
That's a really good question.
It is.
That's a really good question. Do you have like a specific phobia that you're referring to?
Yeah, Valerie, is there a specific and I'll ask this while she's answering. Oh, she answered. Driving. Phobia of driving. Oh, okay, this will be good.
Oh, it's just one of those things. My partner was driving the other day, didn't barely even did anything. I about jumped out my seat, thought she was about to hit a car. I just think that's the thing that comes with you get a little bit. I don't want to say older, because I'm not saying that you're old. I'm only 33, but even in my age,
Baby.
I have developed fears that you just kind of become more aware of the danger of things.
Yeah.
Like even my mom was like, I'm afraid to drive over a bridge, blah, 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 blah. And, it wasn't always like that. I think it's just a thing of wisdom, we'll call it wisdom. Because that's not an unreasonable fear. It's a fairly dangerous thing. I could understand if it was something like sponges or like,
Don't put that in my mind. I'm gonna be like, are you possessed? Looking at my sponges like sideways. I want to tell a little story about that. Sometimes that fear can save our lives. I actually just had that specific fear happen 3 weeks ago. Wait to hear the story. I think it's an amazing story. I might have already told it, but I haven't over told it like most of my stories. So, they don't like this either. So it came into my head. I was going to this farm with my grandson and my daughter, this happy little cow farm. It's a North Carolina thing. Those really hairy cows, like Highland cows. So, it's like petting and all this stuff. So we were going and I got up and I had this gut, like body fear. It was in my gut. I'm like, and it kind of started the night before, but I pushed it back. But in the morning when it was time to go, I'm like, and I heard this voice. I'm very, clairaudient too. I heard this voice that said, if you go to this farm, you're going to die. And I knew it wasn't the farm. I knew it was the driving because it's an hour away, which is way further than I usually drive to go most places. And it was an unfamiliar route. So I'm like, this is actually what I said to myself. Like I stepped outside myself and I looked at myself and I said, are you stupid? Like, what is wrong with you? It's an hour away. Get it together. You're going. So I'm almost to the cow farm, going 50, 60 down this road and, looking around, nothing out, it's in the middle of the mountains. And all of a sudden, I am serious, the world's most giant pickup truck, like just pulled out right in front of me from the side and I couldn't see it. He couldn't see me. I'm cruising, full speed down this road. And then even weirder, so I like slam on the brakes, almost skidded into him, would have T-boned him. I mean, I had a smaller truck, he had a bigger truck, but I still think I might have made it out and he wouldn't have. I mean, I would have hit him like directly. And I'm not sure I would have made it out either because my truck was smaller, but and I was going really fast. Then I couldn't go anywhere because when you pull out right in front of you and you're going to T-bone, like there's nowhere to go. You stop or you hit. You can't go. There's nowhere to go. It was too sudden, like he darted out. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to like floor, so he's pulling out and I'm like, I'm just going to floor and get past this. And I honk my horn. He was pulling like this big hitch, which you couldn't see because it's flat and low, and a trailer. So if I had floored that, I still would have hit him thinking I could go past him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's that space. Oh my God. I like almost double died. I'm just like, you need to listen to yourself. I teach my students, I'm like, you guys need to listen because you know what? Just that niggling feeling. I wasn't going 70. I wasn't going 80. I was going like 40, 50. I was kind of like casual, but I think I was kind of on this semi-alert state. And I think that semi-alert state saved my life. And he just got kicked off again. So, yeah. Oh, you are? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so sometimes those weird things that come out of nowhere, they're from our soul family, they're from our higher self, they're from our wisdom, they're from our psychic abilities, they're from direct connection to all time is now future information. So I don't think it's always bad. I think we need to, observe and sit in that a bit.
Yes,
Anyway, that's my story about that
it's
specific thing.
it reminded me of something I feel like that's really important to talk about. 'Cause I feel like that's a psychic impression, right? You're receiving, like that's some type of psychic message that you're receiving as a form. And I feel like phobias, not just phobias, but like, and I don't want to say like delusional thinking, but like thoughts that are disharmonic, that are, I don't want to
Mm,
say either, but like the more psychic you are, the more sensitive you are to extrasensory perception, and the less you have integrated the shadow, the less you have processed some of your traumas and some of those deep rooted kind of just traumas, the
mhm,
more your psychic impressions can become convoluted. The more your psychic
mm,
receive psychic impressions that are like, I don't want to say absurd, but just inaccurate or
off. Yeah.
yeah, like an irrational fear. But then there are, of course, like you're saying, plenty of times where that is even though the fear seems irrational, there is like a weird premonition. You know what I mean? There's a weird type of psychic energy that was involved. And the hard part, the hardest part is learning to discern between the two. Is this my trauma or is this like
I agree with that. I agree with that. I also went through a weird, I want to bounce this off you. I'm going to ignore you guys for a minute because there's some more questions they have for you, but I went through this weird thing also about driving where I would have like the worst, this is just a couple years ago. I would have the worst anxiety where I almost couldn't drive, keep driving. I'd have to pull over. Like I felt like I was going to pass out. I felt like my heart was it was horrible. And it was at night on highways. And what I was doing, and I know this is going to lead into a whole nother woo woo, and we don't have to go far down this road. But what I was doing was I was flipping back. Like the highway to me, North Carolina highways don't always have a lot of cars on them, in certain areas, the mountains and country and stuff. And so I was flipping in and out of the highway and being in a spaceship in space because the highway would like black out. It's hard to explain. It was like I was driving in space, not driving, flying in space, not driving on the highway. And it was giving me outrageous anxiety. And I went through like 6 to 9 months of that. Like I basically stopped driving at night and it finally stopped. And now I can drive at night and I don't have that. And I wondered, is that like past life trauma, current life, a different aspect trauma? Like, what do you make of that? It came on suddenly, it lasted 6 months, and it definitely had visuals, of space, and then it went away. What's that?
yeah, that certainly to me sounds like I don't say alternate timeline, but when I'm saying alternate timeline, like
Oh,
I don't know if it's past or future. You know what I mean? Like but
I
to
didn't
me
think
it seems
about that either. I could have been maybe I was like flipping. I call it blipping when you blip between timelines. Maybe it was triggering like some kind of timeline switch or something. It was the weirdest thing, but I don't know. It was super, super weird. Anyway, all right. Sorry, just had to overshare.
quite
All right,
interesting, super specific.
go ahead.
Feeling like you're on a
Yeah.
spaceship.
Yeah, it was. It was super. Yeah, it was really crazy. Okay. Wait, trying to get back. There's a lot of questions. Okay, when you work, Dorian, do you focus on specific physical ailments? You kind of answered that, but like if I'm saying, my gut's killing me, are you going to focus on the gut during that session?
So like I was saying, like, yes and no. You know what I mean? Like we will certainly assess that area, but as I'm sure most of you know in here, the energy body, everything is so interconnected. Not even just the energy body, physical. Everything is a whole machine
Yeah,
that's all
yeah.
working with. And so a lot of times when I'm working on people, my main approach or like the main thing that I'm trying to do is to regulate someone's nervous system. That's the main thing.
Mm,
If you correct electrochemical miscommunication, you can treat a lot of illness. So if
Agreed.
I'm not just trying to make an electrochemical adjustment to a person, then I may, if like let's say they have something physical going on, like you're saying, like maybe it's a stomach issue. I may go into the large intestine, the small intestine, start checking out the digestive, system, and I will try to give it more electricity because voltage is
Mm,
healing. A lot of time,
mm,
the other major cause of dis-ease is low voltage.
mhm. Absolutely. I agree. It's interesting sometimes for fun. Oh, am I gonna get kicked? What are they doing? Hold on, they're messing with my computer. Give me 1 second. Okay, weird. They're not just freezing my camera, they're really doing weird things with my computer. Sometimes for fun, I'll look at by people, I mean public figures in consciousness, voltage. And I am like, do you know you have the voltage of a GMO meal? Do you know you have the voltage of a microwave? Like, get off stage, do your effing work, and shut up. Sorry. Okay. Little mini rant. Okay, never mind. So totally agree about voltage. I'm not saying I don't either. Sometimes I get up and I have it too. But guess what? The cool thing is, and the gift is of where I am now versus where I am 20 years ago, is now I know what to do about it. Now I can increase my you can too, So it's not that even I don't hit low voltage, right? I mean, I'll speak for me. Maybe you don't. I do hit low voltage less and less, which is also nice, but I do, and I know what to do about it. And that's the cool thing. So following on that, Stacey's question. So is trapped energy that we hold in the body because we're not processing our emotions effectively? And if so, what are some ways you would suggest to mitigate? Are you having audio problems?
I don't know why there's just so many problems going on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, because this is like a kick A call. You know it. Come on. This is great. Like, this is real conversation.
That's pretty typical. But my audio is good now. You can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Um, that's one thing. Yeah, a lot of times energy is being stored in the body because it's not being processed. And the way that we process it, one of the ways is we express it. Now, how do you
Mm,
express it? You can express it through art, through writing, through just talking,
yeah.
communication, through dance, or through movement. The movement is the progress. The movement is the thing that I try to focus on in my work because that movement moves the energy. We are built to move. You don't use it, you lose it. And again, that's why the it's so cliche to say, but like exercise really will help like your mental health, your emotional health, like it really will release a lot of energy. And yoga, the movement is key. The stretching, again, stretching and breaking through that tension, that allows that energy to flow more properly.
I'm just going to throw out there, and you can get them for 30, 40 bucks. I mean, I have a really expensive one because I don't know. But you can get those rebounders. Even a rebounder is amazing. If you guys get on a rebounder and even just gently bounce, you don't have to go on YouTube and do all the like exercise, routines. You just like gently bounce. Even that helps release your stress. It's movement. It moves it moves your lymph system. So even if you guys, are like, I'm not gonna, run a marathon, or I'm not gonna do hardcore exercise. And also, I'm not a big exerciser, but I like rowing. Again, I find even the rhythmic movement of rowing does something for me, not just the body movement, but I just like I know it sounds dumb, but like the rhythm, the repetitive, does that make sense? I don't know. Like, it does something for me. Not sure what, but it feels good. Feels good to move in like a steady, beat, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love rowing too.
Oh, do you? That's cool. Oh, that's cool. Not surprised. So if I'm angry, should I immediately start dancing? Like, how to process appropriately when it's happening? That's a good question. So in the heat of a moment, what do we do?
That's a really good question. I mean, like, I'm not trying to sit here and say like, hey, like, take it out on that person, but like, you should definitely like, if it depends on what you're angry about. If you're angry with another person and you have the opportunity to communicate with them in a way that's healthy and functional, that's what I would recommend. If not,
Mhm.
like, if you're unable to like express yourself verbally with anger that you're experiencing, I would ask, this is what I try to do anyway. I say, am I upset? Like, is this emotional reaction a subconscious reflex? Is this something that feels similar to a trauma I dealt with as a child? And because of that, I am just having this egoic defense mechanism to try to protect myself? Or is this a
Great.
legitimate thing to feel emotional about? And if it is, feel the emotion, feel into it, embody it,
Mm.
be it. Don't don't become it, but allow yourself to feel into that emotion. Again, like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend just like dancing like as soon as you're upset. But if it's something that's lingering, you know what I mean, for hours on end, then I would recommend exhausting yourself. We live in a world where we are, just think about how we were meant to live, constantly, again, moving, using our body. We didn't have time to be thinking about all of these, I don't want to say minuscule things, but things that
Right.
perhaps could be, not necessarily like important, you know what I mean? Or not necessarily something
Right.
seriously. A lot of time,
Right.
I mean, like, and don't get me wrong, because I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's feelings, because I get, like you're saying, I ain't perfect, I'm perfectly imperfect, and I love that about me.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And there are times where I get angry, but again, it's like I try to do the shadow work. I try to acknowledge, like, okay, is this me? Is this them? Is this something I have the ability to change right now? Is this something that's actually really worth me like coming out of my peaceful state? It's a matter of trying to
I
walk
love
yourself,
that.
trying to walk
Mm,
yourself through it.
great question. That's a great question.
That's a
I
really good question.
still get triggered into these emotional states, but I don't go into them for as long. And I get to that point with what you just said where I'm like, wait a minute, am I really angry? Or and sometimes other people, I found, for me, kind of like the handlers, they can come in and they can stoke the fire. So things I wouldn't be like triggered or angry about, they like try to get me triggered. Like they're like, feel on the fire, feel, can you believe? Can you believe? And then all of a sudden I buy into that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And then I'm joining them. And that's when I really catch myself and I'm like, wait a minute, am I angry or are you angry? You know what I mean? Step back. And so I do think there's a lot of and that's why I want to do the work. People are like, we don't have to do the work here. We can catch it another eternal life and another eternal plane, another eternal timeline. But personally, this aspect of me, if it goes on, or where it goes, I want it to be more evolved. I don't want to have all the processing and stuff I had to do this whole time. I don't want to be triggered. I don't want to have all that unresolved trauma. And trauma, nervous system and trauma comes up every, still comes up in me, not as much, every skin, past trauma, future trauma, unresolved trauma, family trauma, personal trauma. It's like trauma, like however the system is rigged, I think it's rigged to keep us in trauma. I think there's something there, and accumulate the trauma instead of kind of flip. My goal this lifetime is to flip it so I'm releasing more trauma that I'm accumulating.
That's the goal. Same thing with toxins, because we're going to accumulate. There's no way
Right.
to not accrue resistances. You know what I mean? Um, and that's something I wanted to talk about too, is the accrual of it. Sometimes small traumas consistently over and over and over and over and over
That's
and over
good.
and over and over and over again
Like that.
outweigh a single event. And
Mm,
trauma, if you simply define trauma, it is just an inability to cope with a stressor. Okay, so anything that makes you
yeah,
feel in
good.
danger or anything you perceive as a threat
Hmm.
is trauma.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I love that. I don't want to keep you all night, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to take any more questions, but would you give us a deliberate, even though you've been giving it to us, because I've had some releases, but would you give us a deliberate 10 or 15 minute, if that's okay with you, sample, a meditation, however you want to present it, whatever you want to do, whether it's silent, whether it's talk through, you just give us instructions and we'll go just a little teaser. And then I'll
Sure.
let you give your information and we'll wrap up.
Absolutely. So what I would figure, we'll just kind of give, like you said, like a little sample of how it would be if someone were to get a session. So we will make it silent. And what I'll kind of do is we'll just how about this? We'll focus maybe on some heart chakra stuff. We'll just kind of work with like some, yeah, let's do a little bit of heart chakra work. I think that'll be a good place. Heart chakra plus nervous system. Those would be the things we kind of work with. So all anybody needs to do is just relax and breathe. It would be ideal if you can lay down. You don't have to lay down though. You can be sitting there and just, kind of close your eyes and just start doing your best to just breathe and relax. If you can, try to make any mental notes. If you feel any sensations like the ones you mentioned, it could be twitching, it could be emotional releases, there could be colors that you see, visions you see, there could be temperature changes, pressure, tingling, that kind of stuff. um there's no pressure, just do your best to just relax and breathe, and I'll go ahead and I'll get started here in about 30 seconds, and I'll let everybody know we're all finished up. Okay, all right, I'll see everyone on the other side. All right, everybody, take your time coming back. Take your time. All finished up. Take your time. It's getting hot.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. I felt tingling through my whole body. I was having a lot of releases right away with the shoulders and the
Oh,
chest.
good.
And it reminded me of a little before you give your information. And we won't keep everybody. Thank you everyone for being here and asking such great questions and participating. Um, when I first had my first releases, I'm like, am I just moving because I'm like supposed to? So I've told you this. So I'll tell my body, don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move. Like, and it move, I can't stop it. That's how you know it's involuntary. Because even when you want to not move, so it's kind of funny. So you guys can test him. I've already done all the tests. I'm telling you. He is vetted, he is real, and you'll have a great experience whether you move or think you move or don't. So highly encourage you to try him out. Why don't you give us all your information and then I'll copy and paste your information either tonight or tomorrow because this is live. And then when I'll put it under the thing for them so they can access it easy. But if you want to verbally give it to, that'd be great.
Sure. My Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are all Leptokinetic. And my YouTube is Dorian Fraser. My website is somaticenergyrelease.com. It's where you can find a lot of my stuff. You had some toe twitches. That's great. I love that.
Oh, Twitches are good. I love that too. Yeah. So we're getting lots of, feedback and thank you guys. People had eye flutters. Some people had songs come to them. So really cool.
Wonderful.
Some cool things happening. But thank you. Sorry to take up so much of your time. It's such a great conversation. So great to be in your presence. As always, you'll probably be seeing me sometime soon. I also have to say he's so generous because half the time, like my dogs also get the energy. Do they not? They like fall asleep all over me. And he's just nothing phases him. There could be an earthquake and he'd be there. He'd be like, no, just stay there you are. It's over. So it's amazing. And, please get to know him. Amazing being. Thank you for being here at this time. Thank you for being of service. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for doing the work. And I'm so happy to know you and so happy to introduce you to my audience. So, yeah, all good. Any final words or thoughts? Anything you want to say?
The big thing that for me, like departuring words for me have been, please just love yourself, be yourself, be authentically yourself. You are perfect as you are. There is no one else who is you, and that is the beauty of you. And if you don't know you yet, then you should try to start building a relationship with yourself.
Beautiful.
Because no one else is gonna do it better than you can. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would like to leave on.
I love it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Dwayne.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.